And for the first video in the brand new kitchen, we are gonna take a trip down south to Cajun country, and we're gonna be making a classic red beans and rice, and oh boy, is it dang delicious. You're definitely gonna need to set a little bit of time aside to make this recipe because we're gonna soak some beans overnight. I'm gonna show you another quicker way as well, then we're gonna knock out a little prep. Sound good? Let's cook. In a medium-sized plastic container, I'm going to be adding in some red kidney beans. I love using the Camellia brand. It's obviously from the South and perfect for this recipe. Once you add it to the container, we're going over to the sink. What we want to do is fill it up with cold water until it's about 4 to 6 inches over the beans. Okay, say you don't have that kind of time to wait overnight, you need to do this quicker. What you can do is bring some water to a boil, pour it over top of the beans, the exact same amount, and they will be ready to roll in 1 hour. Now, if you don't have dried beans at all and you only have canned beans, well, you're gonna have to wait till a little later, and I'll show you how to use those next. So what I do is I set them to the side in a cool, dark place overnight, and overnight means when I'm ready to cook the next day, not the exact next morning. So let's go ahead and take it out, see how it looks. You can see the beans have soaked up a lot of water. We're gonna set them to the side and get going on some other prep, beginning with some yellow onions, which I'm going to simply slice the end off, slice in half, peel, and then of course, small to medium dice. And then again, we're gonna do that exact same size knife cut on some celery stalks. When it comes to bell peppers, you know that I'm not a huge fan of green bell peppers, but I do recognize that they are incredibly classic to use in this recipe. So to offset some of those lame green bell pepper flavors, I'm gonna add in some red bell peppers as well. It's gonna add some nice sweetness and much more pepper flavor. What I like to do is slice the ends off of all of them, and of course that bottom part. And then again, just like everything else, small to medium sized dice, both the peppers, and then set them to the side in a bowl. When it comes to garlic cloves, you already know, my friends, they're going straight through a garlic press. Okay, the prep is finished. You can see it definitely was not that bad. What we need to do now is rinse off these beans, and then after that, it is gonna move very, very quickly, so watch closely. Here we go. Let's take those beans right back over to the kitchen sink. I've got a colander. What we're gonna do is just drain off the beans, and then what I like to do is just spray it a little bit, run it over some cold water just to get any of that old starchy water out of there, and then set it to the side until we're ready to use them. Now, in a very large pot, I'm gonna add in some rendered bacon fat. Remember, I always tell you to keep your bacon fat. You could also use butter or olive oil. We're gonna turn the heat to medium, and now what we're gonna do is add in all of our vegetables, starting with our diced yellow onions. Then we're gonna follow it up with our celery. Of course, let's not forget about our bell peppers. And then last but not least, we've got our finely minced garlic. Now, usually, you know me, I would caramelize those onions first, but that's not what we're gonna do in this recipe. What we do need to do is sweat them over medium heat. We're not looking for a caramelization. We're simply looking to tenderize the vegetables a little bit and infuse all of those delicious flavors. Again, we're talking maybe 10, max 15 minutes. After that time, grab those beans, and we're gonna simply pour them right in there and start mixing everything until it is combined. Now I'm gonna pour in some chicken stock. Traditionally, you would use water. I feel like chicken stock just adds so much more flavor here, so that's why I'm gonna use it. And then starting with seasonings, we're gonna hit it with some bay leaves. Okay, when it comes to seasonings, you definitely have some options. You can use a pre-made Cajun mix from your favorite grocery store. You can make homemade, like in my jambalaya recipe, or if you don't want to do either of those, you definitely want to add in cayenne, garlic, and some sort of pepper, whether that be white or black. Now, when it comes to herbs, I like to use dry thyme. The other variations I've seen and you can absolutely use is dry oregano, dry basil, or dry sage. A combination of some of those, all of them, one of them, you choose. Now remember, when it comes to using herbs, you want to start with dry, so we add these dry at the beginning, and you want to finish with fresh. So if you want to use all fresh, you wait to the end. For me, I'm gonna use my jambalaya Cajun mix because it's awesome. Let's add a little bit in there. We are gonna sprinkle in a few tablespoons of this Cajun seasoning. Remember, season once, taste twice, my friends. Okay, one more quick thing, and I promise I'll shut up for a little while. The late great chef Paul Prudhomme, what he liked to do is add smoked ham hock right into that pot and slow cook it, get all those delicious smoky flavors, those ham flavors. So if you can get a smoked ham hock, absolutely put it in there. This recipe is fantastic for any of those holidays that have leftover ham because you can absolutely just use some of that. I've got a small little smoked shoulder cottage butt. These are kind of hard to find. So if you just have ham, just use that, or again, ham hock. What we're gonna do is just large dice this up and add it right in. You can large dice these, or in fact, you can even cut them a little bit bigger. No problem, we're cooking for a long period of time here. Add them right into that pot with the red beans and all that other goodness. Grab your wooden spoon and then mix everything together until it is combined. We're gonna pop a lid on this and it's gonna take in between 2 to 2.5 hours on low heat. And with about 30 to 45 minutes left in the cooking process, what we're gonna do is come back and have a look. You can also come back and stir every 30 minutes just if you wanna feel safe about it, make sure nothing's burning or that it is definitely still cooking. We're gonna give it a little mix. We're gonna pop the top back on there, and then what I'm gonna do is start slicing up some andouille sausage. Now you can use smoked, you could use raw. I prefer the smoky flavor of smoked andouille, so that's exactly what I'm going to use. Just slice it on a bias, make it look a little bit nicer, and then we're just gonna head back over there and add it right to that pot. Now be sure to mix this in until combined, get all those smoky flavors moving throughout. At this point, if you used a smoked ham hock, take it out, trim that ham and throw it right back in there, discard the bone. Now, okay, fine, we'll make some rice and okay, I'll rinse it. You guys always bust my chops about not rinsing rice. Got some nice long grain rice here. I'm gonna add it to a colander. Now using your faucet, just run some cold water, get any of that starchiness off. I should actually do a video on cooking rice, rinse and unrinse, and see how it turns out. Maybe I'll do that soon. Now what we're gonna do is transfer it over to a medium-sized pot. And then when it comes to adding water, I don't like to do a 2-to-1. I like to add about 70 to 80% of what it calls for, because if you do, it just tends to overcook. What we're gonna do is crank the heat on high and bring it to a boil. Give it a quick little stir, then we're gonna add another lid on. Hallelujah, found my lids. They're out of storage. We're gonna take the heat down to low. We're gonna cook it for about 15 total minutes. We're gonna come back and then using a fork, what we wanna do is fluff up the rice, make sure it's all broken up, and then just set it to the side and keep it warm because we're almost ready to use it. Let's take a look back at our red beans, have a look. It should be nice and creamy and thick. The beans should still be tender. They should break down a little bit to help thicken it. In fact, it should be nappe. That means you can coat the back of a spoon. Run your finger through it. You see how that top part does not run through that line you ran through or go to the bottom part. This is perfect, my friends. Nice and thick, absolutely delicious. What we're gonna do is hit it with a little Tabasco sauce, adjust the seasonings with salt and pepper or even Worcestershire sauce. And then we're getting super close to eating some of this goodness. All right, fine. So you don't want to do the dry bean process and you only have canned. What you need to do is drain them and rinse them. We are going to use half the amount of stock or water and half the cooking time. That's all it's going to take to get this red beans and rice recipe perfect. But it is still all about these fundamental cooking techniques. Once you put them into practice, I'm telling you, getting your knife cuts right, making sure the red beans sauce, the liquid in there, is nice and thick. It's not runny or soupy. It's the perfect consistency because your beans are cooked perfectly. Put all these things into practice, and I'm telling you, all of your homemade food from scratch is going to be absolutely incredible. Now, we are gonna plate this up because we have to add a few more things to this recipe. What I like to do is add in several ladles of this red beans right into a bowl, and then we're gonna add in a bit of rice. It is not a 1-to-1. I like maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 cup of cooked rice in here. Then we garnish with some fresh sliced green onions, and I like to hit it with a little fresh thyme. Makes it that much better. Well, if you loved this recipe and learned something, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. And definitely check out this recipe video right here because I made it just for you guys and I promise you'll love it. We'll see you on there. Let's get in this.